Hey, welcome everybody. I am David Ortinau, product manager for .NET and .NET MAUI, and I'm very excited today to have some guests with me to talk about an app that they've been working on for a while, and they are starting to beta test with .NET MAUI. So with me today from Fidelity are Matt and Kevin. Matt, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and then hand it over to Kevin?
Sure. Thanks, David. Yep. Matt Faust, Fidelity Investments. I'm a group squad lead for our active trader platforms. And Kevin and I are building the new modernized Active Trader Pro beta. Kevin?
Kevin Bieri. I am VP of Architecture at Fidelity, looking after, in particular, Matt's area with Active Trader products. Been a .NET dev for 21 years now.
Good. I'm in good company then. I think I've been doing I've certainly been doing .NET since it was first released, but software for 30 years or so. Whew. We've seen some things, haven't we?
Oh, the 1.1 to 2.0 conversion is the one thing that I'll never unsee.
So I was not familiar with Active Trader Pro until we started to engage together and talk about, is this a good fit for the next iteration of what you were trying to accomplish? Why don't you kind of give us the background, what this is, and take it from there?
Sure. Yeah. So, Fidelity is always committed to enhancing the way our customers trade, and our customers can access the markets using web, mobile, and we have a desktop platform, Active Trader Pro. It's been around for about 10 or 12 years now, and we felt like, just leaning into our community feedback and its age, we felt like it was time to modernize. What we set out to do was build a very performant application, and one of the paramount steps was to try to have a downloadable desktop that was native on both Mac and Windows. Desktop platforms, as you know, they're data dense. They require a lot of real-time data. We're streaming, hundreds of symbols, if not thousands of symbols at once. We're looking to add, real-time insights and analytics and analysis, feature-rich advanced trading tools. So performance is really key when you're trying to do all that in one shot. Again, we came upon MAUI as one of our prime choices, and Kev could probably take us a little into that decision making.
Yeah, so we did POCs across a myriad of technologies, everything from Flutter to Java to native WebAssembly applications. And what really stuck with us was the ability to harness the underlying power of the operator of the machine itself, which when we start dealing with a web platform, you're abstracted behind the browser. So getting that native opportunity to drop down to the machine itself is really kind of what gave us that confidence that we'd be able to achieve the performance goals that we set out.
And ATP, Active Trader Pro, what was it? You said it's 12 years old, you said? What was it written in before?
It's been written in a couple of things.
Okay.
It started off as C++, its life is C++, was then migrated to Silverlight, and then eventually WPF, and has stayed as WPF for the last 10 years.
Gotcha. And so was one of your goals then to be able to leverage and bring forward some of that investment?
And certainly. So the ability to take some of that complex line of business code calculations that took us, months of iterations to get correct, unit tests to cover all of that, bringing that forward into modern .NET and bringing it even forward to MAUI gave us that opportunity to make sure that we didn't revisit some of the pain that we dealt with the first time, and we tended to get things more frequently. Having a known quantity for our developers to go back in and look at has given them the opportunity to have basically answers to the test in a lot of instances to make sure that when we move these stories forward, when we move new features forward, that everything tends to work the way that we want it to.
Nice. Well, every time that I have seen a demo of this app, it blows my mind. It's one of the most beautiful apps. And data dense is just probably underselling it. So I'm super eager to see the progress that you've made.
Thanks. Awesome. Yeah. Can't wait to show it to you guys. So here it is, Active Trader Pro Beta. What you're looking at, obviously a lot of data already on the screen right off the bat. Everything is, user can choose where they position, resize and position every tool. We can open up a tool here from the nav, open something up. I can place it where I want, resize, drop it. You can see I kind of have like a little bit of a magnetization as I resize and move things. What I want to call your attention is our kind of taskbar up here, which serves a couple of purposes. We try to sort of model it after that Windows taskbar at the bottom, where the purpose would be tools in use, which you could see is kind of highlighted. All the windows that I have open, I have highlighted, and then I can favorite some tools here. Right, you can see I've favorited the trade tool and the option chain, and I can open those up directly right out of the taskbar as well. So gives us, I think gives us sort of a feel that customers are used to, being able to find everything that they're looking at in one shot was another piece of our community feedback. People wanted, always finding tools, how to open them is key. So we get that functionality out of this top nav here.
And so while Matt's kind of got the overall application up and running, I'll give you kind of a broad idea of how it's constructed under the covers. So every tool that he has highlighted, that he has shown, and then is snapped together back and forth is actually composed of like a hexagonal architecture where each one is an independent plugin that plugs into the overall ecosystem of the tool itself. So from a development perspective, our developers tend to write two tools for every single one of those screens that you see. One is a NET or an RID-less version of that tool that contains our view models as well as our business logic that's isolated to just that tool. And then we separate the UI as well. So what that does is that allows us to actually build three different versions of this application from the same code base. The first version would be the OS X version, which is what you're seeing today, then a separate Windows version, and then we can also build that app as a console app that allows us to actually, using a REPL, interact with the view models themselves without actually having to boot the entire user experience. And so we went that way for a couple of reasons. It helps us where we're doing end-to-end testing, and B, it also helps with isolating performance between our user experience itself as well as the view model and everything behind. And so with that isolation, it allows us to kind of pick and choose data binding methodologies as well. And so what we utilize is from the views to the view models. We use a traditional MVVM pattern. And then from the services forward to the view models, we use a Redux methodology where view models have access to states and observables of states so that they can actually paint all of this data that you see on the screen. And so that hybrid pattern allows us to bifurcate development so that developers working on the user experience aren't necessarily tied to the same developers working on the backend servicing and filling of data into those states. And so that allows us to scale inside of our development org to try to get more synergies towards delivering this faster. And so really what you see here is really a composition of Matt has roughly 10 different applications on the screen, plus the host container that actually draws the outside of it and provides all of that MDI style functionality.
Yeah, and I remember when you started adding more and more of these windows inside. It was like we got to a point where it was like, okay, now the thing's crawling, right? And
Yep.
then we had to do quite a bit of work to identify why is that and what can we do to improve it. And for me as a product manager, product owner here, that's one of the main things I loved about the engagement with you and has been rewarding for us is that we learn these things as you push the boundaries and as you are out there trailblazing a desktop app with .NET MAUI, and we together look into those things and see, okay, well, how can we accomplish the goals that you have? And it ends up benefiting others who come behind you and do similar things. So, like with all the different documents or windows that you have here on the screen, what are we looking at? Like what are these? Are these collection views, list views? What are these?
So anything that you see as a grid is a Telerik RAD data grid. So Telerik implements their grid as a Skia canvas. So when you're looking at this application as a whole, what Matt has highlighted right there with, I think that's a watch list, that is an actual Skia canvas. And so what's happening back behind it is we're updating data through observable property changes. That goes through a custom dispatcher that allows us to group property changes to make sure that we're making the best use of the MAUI measure and the range pass. And then when it comes into Telerik then paints all of those as Skia canvas. Working with Telerik has been great because they've allowed us to go and actually insert our own Skia drawing into the actual canvas itself. So everything that you see, including the day range column that Matt's highlighting there, is actually data-bound Skia controls that are actually being painted as part of the overall canvas as that gets painted. So with that kind of chasing of performance, especially on the cross-platform side, falling down into Skia is where we've traditionally been able to find those options to get that extra performance, where data templates sometimes misbehaved when you went between the different platforms. So Skia giving us that opportunity to go through and paint the column pixel by pixel exactly how we wanted with the performance characteristic that we wanted became super important to actually get us to our performance SLAs.
And it seems to me that, you mentioned some of the performance characteristics and things that this is updating pretty frequently.
I would be remiss if we didn't talk about how, you mentioned challenging the boundaries, and just right off the bat, what I'm showing you here, and the thing that I centered here right in the center of the screen is just, we've got, this is a list of 50 symbols here that I'm streaming real time on all at once, right? And that's just one window, right? I mean, we can place this elsewhere and you can see I'm streaming another 15 symbols down here. This I'm getting full streaming level 2 quotes on. Obviously, I'm pulling in data from my chart. I can open a quick streaming time and sales window. This is all real-time data that I'm pulling in. So, we mentioned data dense and rich analytics. I mean, that's what we're focused on here. That's what you're getting out of these windows, right? We've got a positions window. This is for a user who's going to monitor all of his positions. He could have hundreds of different accounts, hundreds of positions in these accounts, right? You've got this that I called out was a scanner window. We're scanning the entire market for your top gainers, your top losers, your most active symbols. And as you choose one of these drop downs, we quickly change the entire grid, right? And now I'm showing a whole new list of symbols, giving you, these are all the top losers on the day, right? I'm giving you the last price, the bid, and the ask changes all in real time. And you can see as I'm moving around, we're staying performant, and this time in sales is still streaming all of that data real time.
Yeah, that's absolutely fantastic. I do remember some of the early work where when you drag one of those windows around, all the other charts just kind of stopped in their tracks. Yeah, they were like, "Oh, we can't keep up with that." And now the work that you've done, it's fantastic. It looks buttery smooth from where I'm sitting.
Yeah, we made some changes in terms of MDI, and you guys certainly made some changes on your side in terms of performance for individual sections of the application as well. Being able to I know you guys made some performance improvements in templated views. So like from a MAUI perspective, every one of those tools that you see is a templated view that contains content views. And so what we've seen is that as we got performance improvements from the MAUI team, we were able to action those performance improvements into the application to actually maintain the ability to resize these, drag them across the screen, and then even snap them together. And so all of those kind of features and functionalities around the drag behaviors, the resizing behaviors, and even maximize behaviors, all of that is tied into the work that you guys have been doing to improve the performance of those tools over time.
Sweet. All right, Matt, where are we going next?
Yeah, so I started to show, just also sort of speaking to the performance, everything within the app is all dynamically linked together. You can see I have a small context menu here that I can select a link group. Okay, and this group, I have these windows all linked to my group one. And what you'll see is I kind of flipping around, everywhere you see a symbol, I could send that symbol to this linked group. And you can see everything immediately populate as I'm moving around the app. No matter where you see a symbol, okay, I can just double click on it and I can bring it into my tools, whether I have a trade window or a chart window or a level 2. Right, and that goes right here for the bottom bar. Anywhere that I find a symbol, I could just double click on it and grab it and send it to all of my tools within that linked group. I can have as many, if I want to have 5 linked groups, all with a different trade, a different level 2, and a different chart, and I can manage them all separately. I can do that as well.
Amazing.
I'll talk a little also about some seeding that we've done. So also everywhere in the app, I can also seed a trade, right? That was one of the things, and I talked about how we lean into our community feedback. And the community feedback is really driving what we're doing with the app and what our choices that we're making and how do we prioritize the next thing that we're going to work on. Being able to trade quickly was a big part of what our customers were looking for. Anywhere that you see one of these bid ask buttons, I could just click on it and immediately see the trade. You can see I clicked on the buy. That would imply that I clicked on the ask. That would imply that I'm trying to buy from the ask. We seed an order there for you to do that. And I can do that also anywhere in the app. You see I've got some bid ask buttons right here as well in this scanner window. Again, seed a trade right out of there. I also have a context menu where I can right click where I have a kebab. And you can see in this kebab, I can seed a trade right from this kebab window as well. Once again, anywhere you see a symbol, I can right click on it, okay? And right click on one of these here in the bottom bar. There it is, send an order, okay?
I just love that you call them kebabs. I mean, that's now part of my control toolkit terminology. I've never heard that before, and it makes perfect sense. I love it.
Oh, we can talk about all the kebabs and the hamburger menus, etc.
So Matt, why don't you pull up
another session?
Yeah, so I guess we've got the market scanner down there on the bottom right, which is what a lot of people will kind of skip over is when you see this, you'll notice that there are tabs along the top of that tool. Now, those that are super keen will probably have assumed that we are actually running this in a MAUI shell app. And those of you who really know will know that MAUI tabs don't exist for shell apps. And so one of the things that we got to do was actually lean into kind of the MAUI platform level customizations in order to bring this functionality to shell apps for our users. And so what we end up doing is building our own tab strips, which are completely isolated from the actual tab views that you see underneath. And so that allows us to pull tabs apart, reuse tabs throughout the application, even though tabs aren't available for shells. And so you'll see that when Matt creates the trade right here, you'll see that same kind of tab strip right up there. And so that allows us to even switch independent tools. So what you see inside of that is a stocks tool and an options tool. And so what you're really dealing with here is two different applications, all linked up together as part of that tab strip. And so kind of that modularity of the entire app is what we tried to build everything on top of so that we could promote independent development throughout this entire application.
Yeah, and this consolidated trade ticket that Kevin's calling out with the tabs, this was another piece of our community feedback that we really wanted to address. Is sometimes, and you'll find this with a lot of applications, which is the trade window that I can trade out of, right? Which is the one that places this particular trade. And that's what we're able to accomplish with this tabbing is one trade consolidates everything into one spot and the user can send the order that they're looking for. Kev, did you want to talk a little bit about these context menus that I shared here, where I can open up this context menu pretty much anywhere from the app? I can seed, obviously we talked about the trade, but I can also seed it into a brand new tool.
Yeah, so context menus are fun, particularly when you talk about applications like this, where clicking individual portions of the application will yield you different contextual ideas. So like if that was to show kind of that positions submenu, we have some unique features down inside there that you won't necessarily find in a lot of other context-oriented actions. And so what those are is we enable context menus to be actioned outside of the boundary of a tool itself. So tools register context menu actions with the shell application. And then we resolve a series of context menus based on where you clicked and what we know about the thing that you clicked. And so that allows us to maintain our isolation all while at the same time being able to actually add this experience that ties it down into Maui itself. And so big thanks to the Maui team for adding kind of the hooks that allowed us to do this. And then what we did is we then leveraged Telerik popovers in order to actually make this whole behavior work. And so as you click around in different areas of the application, you'll see that the context menu changes based on where you are. And so like that, if you were to go to positions, I think this is probably the most interesting one that we've got, where if you look at the context menu here, you'll actually see these positions down here. These are other accounts that we're actually pulling and dynamically building those context menu actions right there. Based on data inside of the application. So this is not only is this contextual to where you clicked, but also the data in your accounts themselves that allow you to move back and forth. And so the more we've leaned into context menus, the more that we found unique use cases like that, which allow us to drive more user interactions. Oh, and then we also have all of our seedings, or all of our linking is actually context menus as well.
Mm. Yeah, I remember when we first started talking about context menus, and you jogged my memory on that, we of course, wanted to build something that was useful to you. But also, we kind of had some design parameters that I think the team wanted to work within to meet the needs of other customers as well. And so it's nice to hear that the hooks that were provided and the ease at which Maui enables touching the platform layer and doing any custom thing really that you need to do. Yes, it's work, but you're not blocked on it, right? Like your destiny is in your own hands. And as we can in the future make these things easier and easier and easier, we certainly will. But point in time right now, you were able to do some amazing things with what was there.
And it was actually like the hooks that you gave us were the exact hooks that we needed to keep moving forward. Even though like our requirements were, a superset of the requirements of the underpinning platforms, giving us that opportunity to then yield down into the platform to actually expose this behavior for ourselves and give this to our customers was really, really powerful for our users. And it's probably one of our favorite features, or at least my favorite feature as a user of the application, is to be able to move between accounts and actually use all of those context menus to actually action my position in the market.
Yeah. Well, another control that actually is new in .NET 9, which I don't know that you even need anymore because you've done a great job with your title bars. But we've introduced a title bar, right, for Windows, and it's coming soon for the Mac. And so that's another learning that we got from your team and from your app needs. It's like, hey, we need to be able to do things in that space of the application. And so we're like, well, here are all the native things on the platform that you can do to get into that space and do what you need to do. And then we'll take that learning from you and we'll go see where we can improve desktop development for everybody in Maui. And that starts in .NET 9 for us. So thank you for teaching us that.
Well, I think that's kind of a perfect segue into like, how do you actually build applications that cross the native boundaries with the web boundaries? So Matt, why don't you go ahead and maximize chart and take our listeners through, what we're doing here.
Sure. So yeah, maximize obviously is a functionality that most of our customers would expect, especially in a tool like the chart, where somebody would say, okay, I'm looking at this now, but sometimes I really want to zero in. I might want to draw something on it. I might want to add a new indicator. And our ability to maximize and restore these windows as we kind of zero in on something and have it restore back to the same spot, that was important functionality to add.
And so kind of the most interesting piece about this is that we're actually using an HTML chart here inside of our native application. So we did that for, a couple of reasons. Number one, native charts on Maui are kind of still in their infancy. And we needed a mature platform that kind of met some of our other needs across our entire Fidelity ecosystem. But what we've kind of enabled here is this is a series of web views that are running inside of the application itself. So knowing that what happens when you yield a web view is it actually spins up a browser process in the background, we took the opportunity to optimize how web views behave in our application so that we could use as many of them as we wanted without necessarily slowing down the application. So to that end, what we did is we actually label independent web views in our system as having various priorities. One of those priorities is the default behavior, which is every time it resolves from the DI container, it will yield you a new web view. One of those is a low priority web view, and that's for static data that does not change. Right? Like what Matt has shown you with chart is dynamic data, and that chart is constantly updating with data from the market. And so that's a high priority web view. The difference between high and low priority web views is we actually use the same functionality that the Edge team does. When you are no longer interacting with that web view, we actually take a screenshot of that web view, and then we replace that web view that you're seeing inside of your layout with that static instance, so that we can return that web view to a pool to be used by the next one, so that we can continuously optimize the performance of the application from a memory footprint and CPU perspective. And so that's been one of the big pieces of functionality that we've been able to unlock for ourselves, is in these places where we had functionality that either time constraints and or feature constraints would prevent us from actually actioning natively. This allows us to go out to the web where we have already made those investments and bring them forward. So for a lot of people listening that are building enterprise applications where you might be building an interesting kind of mix of native application and web applications and trying to stitch them all together, this is the methodology that we chose in order to enable those features for our customers.
That is amazing. Yeah, I think more and more of our customers, enterprise and otherwise, are getting back into what they can do with hybrid. How can I leverage all of these different technologies and make them work together? And so I'll take another. I'll make another plug for .NET 9. We have the new hybrid web view, which is similar to the Blazor web view, but we've seen for years more and more customers leveraging WebViews to bring functionality into their native applications, whether desktop or mobile. And the hybrid WebView just kind of simplifies and makes a lot of that easier for you to cross those boundaries between .NET and the web. So we've got a few minutes left. What if I want to do more? Like, you've got a lot of things on the screen, but what if I want to do more, Matt? Can you show me that?
Yeah, absolutely. So you now think multiple monitor experience, even though we're still only on the one screen, and I can kind of resize all of these, right? And now let's think about 4 or 5, 6 monitors. I could put whatever tools that I want. Let's say now I want to create an option trading layout, right? And we showed how we launched an option trade ticket earlier. But now, so let's say I just create a workspace for my option trading, and I want to create this one and drop it onto another monitor. Okay, and then I can have, let's say, a third or fourth monitor set up. I can keep adding some of these workspaces, right? And now I can make a wall of charts with another one, right? And so the idea is that we can support, and we've already talked about how much data, right, that we've already started sharing. And now I opened up, before an option chain with, how by default we're showing at least 20, 30 different options at one time. And again, really speaks to what we need to be able to support with a performant desktop app. And let's do yet another workspace here. And now I've got a workspace with an option chain. I've got a workspace with a chart, and I've got a workspace with a main layout, and we can share them all at one time. I've got 3, 4 different monitors open with all these different workspaces.
And not only that, they all share the same links. So if Matt, you want to flip that chart to link 1?
Yeah, where I'll go ahead and flip this positions page over to link 2, and let's see if I can get this all to show up in one time. Okay, and as I kind of flip, you can see it's happening behind me.
Yeah, in the background. Yeah, I see it back there.
Right, and there you go. Now I've got the symbol changing.
Yeah, Microsoft's not doing too bad. Look at that. All right, nice. How's my Rivian doing? Probably not so good, but that's okay. The truck's still amazing. That's fantastic. Now, I remember, and I didn't ask you about this before, but I remember in some of the early demos, you had a video player running, don't you? Is that not part of this one anymore?
We do not currently have the video player going.
I'm a simple person. I need to have a talking head.
I think that's a little too much for this demo.
Well, this has been amazing. What more would you want people to know about your experience using Maui and building a amazing, unparalleled desktop app like this?
So, I think that we definitely have some lessons learned that we think that we could and should share with everybody. And so if you kind of look at all of the places that we've been focused, like everything that you saw in our application is all wrapped around the actual performance. So number one, like as you go through an optimized performance, be flexible. We saw early on that when we were trying to optimize code, OS X behaves radically different than Windows does. And if you guys go and search for our handles on GitHub on Maui, you'll see lots of questions about asking how the measure and range pass works on OS X. And like that's where I'm saying be flexible. Like as you define your SLAs, find ways to test. We lean hard on benchmark.net in order to actually get us down into that level to make sure that we are optimizing the right things at the right time. Something that caught us out that a lot of people will probably have forgotten because this is back from the good old days of desktop is Defender. Be sure to sign your DLLs with HSM methodologies. That's not just strong naming, but that's actually signing those DLLs using SignTool. If you do it, it skips the process, or it can skip the process by which Defender goes through and verifies that your DLLs are not troublesome. And so in particular, if you're building enterprise apps and want to know why your app is slow to launch, this is probably the first place that you should be looking and speaking to your internal Defender teams in order to actually get your certificates whitelisted to make sure that that's fast. As we kind of continued through startup, you saw how complex our app is. There's quite a bit that has to happen from an infrastructure perspective to get that up and running to where we can actually show you all of those tools. So the more complex you get, we found that separating our startup logic between pre-resolve and post-resolve of the app shell itself gave us the levers necessary to optimize that startup time. And then we talked, I'll kind of skip around a little bit, but we talked about Skia and Maui graphics. This was the lever that we chose to pull in order to actually build the performance that we needed for the application. But as all things, buyer beware, this comes with its own set of trade-offs. We found those trade-offs to be in the UI automation space, meaning that when you go to automate this tooling, those automation IDs that you're going to attach are going to be on the canvas itself, not the actual elements inside of it, which makes UI automation difficult from a longevity and testing perspective. And the same thing goes for accessibility. And so accessibility sees all of that as a canvas. And so you're making trade-offs in both of those spaces. The more you lean into Skia Sharp and Maui graphics for rendering more and more of your application. We're probably at the extreme end of that, but that's something that, everybody should kind of remember like as they go. And the rest of them, source generators, so important that, it got copied and pasted twice. But when deploying for OS X, you've got to make sure that you're properly handling the fact that your application will get trimmed. So reflection is kind of a non-starter for a lot of places. So the earlier you lean into source generators, the better off you are going to be long-term. We wish that we had actually leaned into these a lot earlier in our development process than when we did. And we definitely would have been able to move faster in places where we kind of got stuck behind rewriting code, behind AOT and trimming. So that would be, kind of our takeaways, that some hard lessons that we learned along the way. And big thanks to, the Maui team, to Progress Telerik, the benchmark.net folks, NUnit folks, and reactive extensions folks for building all of the, core libraries that we're leaning on hard in order to actually get this to market.
Yeah, I echo that, Kev. A big thanks to the Maui team for being, helping us along the way on this. Big thanks to Progress Telerik, and big thanks to that Fidelity engineering team who's gotten us here.
Yes, I mean, congratulations on bringing it this far. Speaking on behalf of the Maui team for a moment, we do what we do to really see you kind of set sail and be the trailblazers, and it's amazing. And you jumped in super early in the .NET 6 phase, and you went. I know that transition to 7 and then to 8. But 9 is going to be super smooth. You're not going to have any problems once you get to .NET 9. It's going to be amazing. But I know that we're all up for the challenge. I'm looking forward to everything we're going to continue to learn together as you continue to push ATP forward and get it out to more and more users. So congratulations to you. Thank you so much for sharing your learnings here, and we should do this again sometime.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you later.